Welcome to today's episode of the Creative Vulnerability series. Today's guest is Vanika Mittal, and let me invite her right now. The account is Vibeful Poetry. Uh, welcome. And yeah, we welcome Vanika Mittal. For those who don't know, this is the Creative Vulnerability series where I show people my creative process in real time. And whenever I have a guest, such as Vanika, I interview them about their creative process. And it's based on this diagram that you see here, adapted from Graham Wallace on the four stages of creativity: preparation, incubation, illumination, and verification and implementation. So it's really to show people that the creative process happens in stages like growing a tree. So if you ever feel like you have writer's block, it may just be a misunderstanding of the creative process. It might just be that you need more time for incubation to give it a break, a rest, or you need to do more prep work. So give yourself that compassion. So that's why I created this creative vulnerability series. Aha, Vanika's here. So let me invite her. Accept the invitation. Hi, Teenager Talks. Vanika's mom's here too.
Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm good, good. Yeah,
I am so excited for today. Really excited.
yeah. hmm You can still see the diagram, yeah? Oh, it's a little bit
Yeah, it's a little bit
cut off
cut from
now.
up, but yeah, I
Okay,
guess it's visible.
okay, great.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, Smita's here too. Hi, Smita, Acclaim Stories.
Yes.
Hey,
Ashmita.
so
I
excited.
have missed you, Ashmita. How are you?
Yeah.
How have you been? I have seen your series and I've seen how you've worked on how to write poetry, and I've seen you work on depth of poetry, and I'm just
Mhm.
amazed after seeing that. Really.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Sometimes I even, draw a whole like mind map before I even
I
write a
saw on
single
your
line.
reels,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I felt like, am I a poet? I don't feel like a poet sometimes because I don't usually do anything. I just take a piece
hmm
of paper and I don't know I don't do anything. I just start writing whatever is coming to my mind, and then I just give it some time, and then I edit it, and then I rewrite it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just I don't do the mind map thing and all, and I feel like,
Mm.
oh my god, my creative process is a little less.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that's all the energy or the time that you have, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and it makes sense, especially since you are a student and things like that. Actually, that's why I wrote my poem "Ode to Poetry." Like that poem that I will read later today is inspired by Audre Lorde's observation of poetry as actually very equalizing, not only for the reader but even for the writer, because of how little time and energy it can take. You
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
you can scribble it on a napkin, for example, right, or a customer receipt,
You know,
and because
sometimes
it can be
we
just a
writers
few words,
feel,
it's very little energy.
yeah, sometimes we writers feel that writing is the best thing that can ever happen to us. But we sometimes forget that reading someone else's poetry also helps. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
just feeling like, so what happened once that I wanted to write so much, and there was this writer's blog going on, and I couldn't just I had my
Mhm.
pen in my hand, I had the paper, I had prompts, I had everything prepared, but I just couldn't write anything. So that's writer's block. But when I started reading somebody else's poetry, I got the inspiration. I was happy to read somebody else's poetry, that at least somebody is writing.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly how I work too. Like so in my view, there are two ways of like creative expression, and my teacher says the same thing in his book,
I'm
Spontaneous
sorry. You weren't
Creativity.
audible.
Can you still hear me, Yasumi?
I can't see it because of the background.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, this book is called Spontaneous Creativity by Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche.
Okay.
And he was saying how basically the poems or anything else that's, creative, artistic, the thing that comes quickly, right?
Hmm.
The only reason why it comes so quickly, and some of my poems do come quickly, is
Yeah.
because you are working on a subject that you've already had years of preparation and incubation. So that means you've already been thinking about it for many years. You've already had the thought process. That's why it comes quickly.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
exactly spontaneous, I'd say, because you have been
Right.
preparing for it for a very long time. You have it in your mind for a very long time. You want to
Right.
write
Yeah.
about it for a
Exactly.
very long time, and then just
Exactly. You've had the life
yeah,
experience. Yeah.
yeah. It feels like an oxymoron sometimes that you're saying it's spontaneous and it is
Right.
spontaneous but not exactly spontaneous.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like a poem that I wrote recently called Intertwined, right? That came to me very spontaneously, very quickly. And the prompt was trying to remember.
Okay.
And
Read it.
because that was
Read
the
it, please.
prompt,
We'd like to hear
huh?
it. Please, please.
Okay, yeah, sure, I can read that. Let's see. So that poem came very quickly because I was thinking about Joy and Sorrow by Khalil Gibran, which is a poem that's been around for over 100 years, and I've read and reread that poem for at least 15 years of my life.
Wow.
So I've already had that thought process for 15 years. So that's why it came like within a few minutes. So to the outside observer, it seems like the poem came quickly, but in reality, it had 15 years of preparation, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, but before I do that, I've been thinking about starting my lives with this. I'll read this one first, and then I'll read the other one that you want me to read because I've been thinking about starting my lives by invoking Saraswati Ma, the goddess of wisdom, and in fact, the goddess of poetry, right? And this is a poem that I wrote called Ma Jivanam,
Sorry?
which is called Ma Jivanam,
Okay.
and it's inspired by this book called Hinduism and Nature.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a chapter on the divine waters, which talks about how Hindus worship bodies of water like the rivers and the lakes as goddesses,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that made me curious, and I looked up the Sanskrit words for water, and apparently there are 47 words for water,
Okay. I didn't know
including
that.
Jivanam. Yeah, I didn't know that either. And one of the words is Jivanam, which comes from the word Jivam, right? Life. And so basically, water is life to Hindus. That's why one of the words is Jivanam. So I felt inspired to write this poem from that. Oh, Ma Saraswati hai, oh, Ma Jivanam hai, Ma Jivanam, Mama life. She flows as herself through others, joining her with others in a way that doesn't invade but embrace, and letting the other cuddle back and become something new together, coming down from mountains, melting from glaciers, pouring rain from Akash, space, skies. She becomes a creek, a rivulet, a stream, a river, lakes, oceans. Oh, Ma Saraswati hai, oh, Ma Jivanam hai. But the hostile colonizers were scared of the times when she became floods and tsunamis, so they built dams around her and they thought this was justice, even though it was more of a preemptive strike, caging what shivered their skinny bones and even skinnier minds. They forgot she was inside them too, the very Jivanam itself, 60,000 miles of veins and arteries in total in each body, flowing, 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 flowing. Oh, Ma Saraswati hai. Jivanam hai. But every time she was caged up, it blocked her outer flow, reducing her ability to clean herself, thus reducing their ability to clean themselves too. Because they needed her to bathe. How can they keep clean without her? And how can they be alive if they keep caging up this life itself, this Jivanam, which is also their own very life? Oh, Ma Saraswati hai, oh, Ma Jivanam hai. Oh,
Okay, I loved how you chanted Uma Saraswati in between, and it was like a thing which is getting repeated, and I loved it. I I mean, I love the moment between where you added arteries and veins and flowing, bio into rivers. It was like I never thought about that. Yeah, blood can be related to rivers. I mean,
exactly.
that's a really big connection. Oh my God! Wow, you're a genius. It was a good one,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
proves that we have known about rivers and stuff and about all of it for almost all of our lives, and we just end up writing about all of it spontaneously.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that's spontaneous
Yeah,
creativity.
because Mars said there used to be a river. It dried up in 2600 BC, but it used to exist for real. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
just like Ma Ganga exists right now, right?
And I saw that you've mentioned the abilities of Ma Ganga to clean itself.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing, amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the one you wanted me to read. So this is the one that came very quickly, spontaneously. But like I said, there was like 15 years of thought process, but long before I wrote this, right?
Go ahead.
So this is called Intertwined. I'm trying to remember the good times while forgetting the bad. The moments we winked and laughed together at our inside jokes while forgetting the tears we shed when we lost someone important to us. The fiery hot moans of lovemaking while forgetting the screams of hurt when rejected. The moments you held my hand while forgetting the same hands that pushed me away. I keep trying to remember one while trying to forget the other. But the thing is, sometimes the push was playful, while the hands that squeezed, while the hands that held squeezed a little too tight. Sometimes the yelling came when whispers were not enough to get my attention, while the fire of your trust was actually too hot. Sometimes the tears cleansed my concerns bathed me in a warmth that merely empty laughter could not.
I guess we all will relate to it that we're trying to forget some moments of our lives and then we're trying to enhance some moments of our lives. And
Exactly.
at the end, we
Hmm.
end up remembering all of it.
Exactly. Yeah. When we break up with somebody, or even when we lose a friendship or something, we have a very rosy picture of the things. We remember the positive but ignore the negative. But in reality, the positive and negative are intertwined. They're always existing at the same time.
Exactly,
So that's the,
exactly. Like that
yeah.
thing is still in the back of our mind and
Yeah.
it still goes in our mind despite the fact that we're saying it to everybody that we are trying to forget it.
Yeah.
So,
So Khalil Gibran, the poem that inspired this poem, Joy and Sorrow, he said in his poem that joy and sorrow are two sides of the same coin. So I was trying to bring that concept into life and make it more real and more grounded.
well, you have expressed it very nicely. I love it.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, so for those who don't know, this show is the Creative Vulnerability series. I've been doing it daily since April 3rd. So today is like, I guess, day 14 or 15. I've lost count. But the point of it was that I I wanted to show people my creative process, my prep work, especially, in real time, because I feel like a lot of creatives are not willing to show their creative process in real time, because it is vulnerable, right? To show the messy part of, it. The clean final product is, easier to show people. But I feel like when we don't show people our creative process, it makes all of us feel a little more lonely because we beat ourselves up when things take longer than it does, right? When in reality, the creative process is messy, right?
It
It
is.
can take longer than we expect it to be. And so I wanted to build a community where, we all like lift each other up by willing to at least talk about our creative process,
You
because
know,
the thing is to
sometimes
eat.
after
Hmm.
seeing the final product, writers
Yeah.
ourselves, we
Hmm.
forget that there was a process behind it, that we
Exactly.
did so much effort into it, and
Hmm.
that's how the product came into it, and we just forget it. So, once what happened, I wrote a piece, and like it is still one of my favorites. And what happened was, I don't know, I cried after writing it. I was so
Hmm.
happy after writing it that I cried. I was jumping in the whole house, but I was crying that I wrote
Yeah.
something. And it took me around 2 hours to write that one. I constantly
Hmm.
kept sitting and kept writing, and then I cried that finally I've written something. And when I
Yeah.
posted, I thought, I guess I should add that I did something, that this was not the final piece. This is not the final piece.
Exactly. And you had many drafts before that, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
after a few days, I might have something related to in my mind, and I might want to change it. So this is not the final piece. I have had works for it. So I wrote in the caption after writing the piece that I cried and this happened and all that. So I wrote a whole paragraph that this was the process. So I felt a little happy,
That's awesome.
and people in the comments actually appreciated the fact that I shared the process. And like, they felt it after reading the piece, that yeah, what the writer must have gone through. So I like it when, suppose you told me that you have been reading one piece for 15 years and then you wrote this piece, but
Right.
if you post it on Instagram, people won't know
Mhm.
that you have been reading something for 15 years and you got inspired by it.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
thing which
Yeah.
most people don't appreciate, but still.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why I do this, and I think even what's the so-called writer's block is, I feel like it's a misunderstanding of the creative process. It's that we expect things to come too quickly, and when in reality, if we put in a strategic delay on purpose by having an incubation period, like according to the 4 stages after preparation, after you write down that first draft, for example, like you did, if you like take a break for a few hours or even a few days on purpose, then it's easier. Then the poem comes much more quickly
I
by the
can
time you
relate
come
so
back.
much
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
once what happened, I mean, recently I wrote this piece, Hey, I'm a Poet. And
Hmm.
before completing this piece, I was in my English class in school, and I was like, okay, I have something in my mind. So I was like, okay, I'll just write it down very messily. It was on literally two pin pages. And if you see those pages, you'll be like, this is so messy. This is so messy. That was so messy. And then after 3 days, I kept it. I didn't see it. I didn't write it on my phone. I didn't do anything. I kept it somewhere aside for 3 days. And after 3 days, I was like, now I have to write it. And I gave myself that time, and then I wrote that
Exactly.
piece, and that's how it turned out. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
god. So I was going through a writer's block, and then I gave it some time. I gave it effort. My English sir was looking at me like, Monica is so tense, because I was like, okay, something is coming into my mind. I have to write it right now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that break is so important, like that incubation period. So now I don't have writer's block anymore because I take the breaks on purpose. So it's just part of my process now, you know. Especially now that I understand that creativity happens in stages. Like,
that's so great. That's so great. I didn't
yeah.
know how to overcome writer's block exactly 10 seconds before. And now I know that I have tried to overcome it myself and I didn't know the process of how to do it. And now I know it because
Mhm.
of you.
Awesome. Exactly. That's why I do these lives. I'm trying to
Exactly. You're
build
doing
a
a very good
community
thing.
like
I
that.
appreciate your concern and
Mhm.
all for everybody else. I
Mhm.
mean, wow, yaar. Do you want me to read that piece?
Which one?
Hey,
Oh yeah. Hey Amar, you have two pieces that are related. One is a letter to poetry, and then Hey, I'm a poet, right?
yeah,
Uh,
actually, when I was writing a letter to poetry, I actually wanted to write it to initiate a conversation between me and poetry. But
mm,
I don't know, I wrote it and it didn't turn out that good. I didn't like it. I mean, I don't think that I mean most of it. I was just writing it because of the prompt. So I don't believe that it's my poetry. It's just prompts. So I don't like
right.
it.
It's still
Yeah,
it's
I'm
still
gonna hey, I'm a poet.
it's still in the incubation period, waiting for the illumination, that quick flash of insight, the
Yes.
final piece to come out. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So this one is
exactly.
called Hey, I'm a
So
Poet.
okay, let's hear that. Yeah.
And this is what I was talking about, that I left it for 3 days and then I wrote it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so hey, I'm a poet. I can write about how metaphors for my mind is like an eternity in an infinity. How a happier than
Mm,
ever is a walking dream of ending the beginnings. How a tinnitus can be a death like bee sting. How an uprising of a fetus will have to lead to when its heart ceases to beat. How an old flattened flower sunk in between all the euphoric handwritten letters feels like an epitome of soft memories. How all the ever afters and forevers lasted too soon. I can paint your name on my fibula, and the next moment I can feel my tibia break into the sorrows the moon drank. I can write a song for the dead as they susurrus the hellacious moments from the future. I can hide the god-forsaken mess under my scars as I wake up to mausoleum. I can write parallel universes where there's chains around my demons that ripped apart my reigns of life and death. I can write about elegant epiphanies under the mistletoe with my heart feeling like a butter on burnt toast. I can write about all the colors, but a midnight poetry about all the chemistry between blacks and whites feeling like my favorite heartbreak.
mm-hmm.
I can write for a lover who thinks butterflies are not dreams anymore, for a lover who loves like a poet but isn't one, a lover who write everything with his eyes, a lover who's a poet to me. The one who can give me a sparkle of tomorrow and make felt like whole. I can write that a lover can give breath to an abandoned station. I can write that it is love you're full of. I can write it's not solitude loving you, it's a lover loving you. And it's a poet loving the lover. I tried everything in this world to connect the past with the future, to defrost the poems caked in the present. I tried everything in this world to preconize by saying, hey, I'm a poet. Thank you.
Love it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love how you meticulous you are in your poetry and how like some of the words you use, not in this poem, but I feel like some of the poems that I've read, like even the words you use, like sometimes I even have to look them up in the dictionary, because they're like
Oh, no,
so
actually,
they're like yeah.
yeah, I just feel like using the words. Okay, so what
Mm-hmm.
I do is whatever is coming into my mind, suppose if something is coming like some sounds. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
I wrote this line. I can write a song for the dead as they susurrus the hellacious moments from the future. So,
Mm-hmm.
susurrus is a word for whisper and make a sound in a ear. So I was like,
Okay.
I don't want to exactly write whisper. I don't think whisper is the exact thing which I want to
Mm,
write, which I mean in that poem.
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
searched for words which actually mean, and then I actually
Mm,
put it in it, like hellacious moments from future. So it was like moments which are important, moments which just make feel whole. So I was like,
mm.
yeah, wow, I'm doing something.
Right, exactly. You're so precise, in your expression, which I love, which is very important for
Thank
a
you.
poet.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I
Thank
love
you.
that. Yeah. The other thing I observed about that poem is I don't know if you know this. It's basically so there's a whole genre of poetry called the list poem. And what you just created is a list poem where you just list things, but each line is a different expression, right? And those poems like they they make it easy for the poet to write when you just have a list. I love writing list poems myself. A lot of my poems recently are also list poems where I just follow like the same uh, the same line structure over and over again and just basically fill in the blanks. And yet it can still be powerful, even though because and in fact because you're repeating, there's a refrain, it's like music.
Yeah, I have read list poems like one of my friends from my school writes, and I have read only most of her list poems only, and she is so amazing. She can write about death in list poems.
Ooh, wow.
I was like, this is impossible. This is very impossible, and she uses so different metaphors. I mean, it's sometimes hard for me to understand, but it's very deep. You will understand it. I'll,
Mhm.
I'll send you sometime soon.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So it is National Poetry Month, and that's why I wanted you to read that poem. And I will read my ode to poetry now. And the one I told you about is about how, poetry is so accessible, right, for both reader and writer. And this is also kind of a list poem. I'm basically listing the different situations, when poetry can be so helpful and handy. It's called Ode to Poetry, the Art of the Resourceful. Sandwiched in the subway, mouth open in shock at unwanted touch. No money for counseling, no time for processing, no notebook with me. I do have this customer receipt with me, so I scribble something there, showing myself what I feel, so that I at least have my heart and soul and paper mirror as witness and reflection, even if no one believes me. Later, oh wow, what a marvelous way to be loved like this. My every muscle, every movement towards them and away from them was not just felt but deeply heard and also honored, so honored. I felt so touched. My petals around my mouth flew naturally to the nectar of their magnetic compassion. My enthusiasm returned with slow maple syrup, moving towards me surely but always fully engaged with my every response. I don't even have anything to write down this momentous memory except this chewing gum wrapper from the gum I had savored earlier to be fully prepared for this moment. And sometimes on some nights, my forehead is pulsing with tension after a long day's work. My arms just droop into this pool of a bed. I have no time except for a few words, but thanks to the goddess of poetry, it is enough.
It is. Sorry, can you repeat the last line?
Oh, I said, but thanks to the goddess of poetry, it is enough.
Okay, that was, oh my god. Is it based on a moment? Like, did you actually have a chewing gum wrapper in your hand and you were like, okay, I have to write something on it?
No, I just imagined. Yeah.
That's, I mean, I love the imagery you've created here.
Hmm.
Wow, wow. Goddess of poetry.
Yeah.
I love how you've okay, so in the first few
I
lines,
have written poems and on customer receipts at many coffee shops. I have done that. Not the chewing gum wrapper, but the customer receipt.
sorry,
I've done that.
I couldn't listen, sorry.
I said I have written poems on customer receipts many times. So yeah,
Wow, wow.
yeah.
You know, if you post the picture of those customer receipts, people will be so inspired that
Mm,
that the preparation process can be anywhere, anytime, and
exactly.
editing
Yeah.
process can be anywhere, anytime, you know.
Right. Yeah.
I love how
Exactly.
you used the word reflection in the first few lines, and goddess
The
of
paper
poetry.
mirror. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, mirror and reflection. I love it. I love it. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess Poetry Month went well for you.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've been writing at least one poem a day every day.
That's so great. I write in like I don't know, months. I write a
Mm,
lot late time. I wouldn't call that incubation time like you say. I wouldn't call that. But when I sit to write, when I'm getting something in my mind, when I feel like yeah, I have to write, what I do is I just go
mhm,
to my friends. I ask them
mm,
about. I question them. I literally interrogate them about what they think about it, and
mhm,
then I think about what they replied. I I don't know. It's just a very weird process of me
mhm.
writing, and but then I end
Yeah.
up using their opinions in my poetry. You would see a lot of times I write at the end that this piece inspired by this one of my friends and all that. I wrote that once, and I was like, wow. I mean, at least my friends helped me in that. You know, normal
Mm,
moments like that help. I was reading a book, How to Fall in Love by, okay, I forgot. It's Cecilia Hearn. Have you read P.S. I Still Love You?
yeah, she's in what, Kenya, right? Yes, I saw. Yeah,
It's a movie also.
yeah, I
It's
read
based on a
that.
movie also, and she's the same writer for How to Fall in Love.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I remember. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I have not read it fully. It's still half. And then I read it on a particular word. I read a particular word from it, and then I just like, okay, now I have to write. So I just ran finally. Ki, okay, I am getting something in my mind. I have to get my phone. I have to get something to write on and all. And so I was writing. So
Hmm.
yeah, and
Right.
in your piece, you mentioned one line. It feels to be okay. I think I forgot, but uh, I was like, it feels so good to be loved, something like that. What was that line?
Um, I said, what a marvelous way to be loved like this.
Yeah, okay. So what happened was I wrote a piece, if we ever fall in love, and this is the one which is one of my most favorite pieces, and I cried after that. And somebody on that piece commented, uh, I guess, do you know Andy?
Yeah, and the ink's still fresh, right?
Yeah. He
Yeah.
commented, wait. He's like, if I ever forget about the kind of love I want, I'll come back to this poem. So that your line reminded me of that comment, and I was like, wow, oh my god, oh my god,
Yeah, yeah.
I miss reading.
Oh, yeah, that's great. I recently finished my most romantic piece so far, and actually, that's the one that that started with the mind map, and then it took
Okay,
me 3 weeks. That's the
can
one
we
that took me 3 weeks to
can we
finish. Yeah,
hear? Can we please last piece of the day?
uh, it is kind of long. I can read. I wanted to read this one first. This is called How to Find Your Passion. And then I can read the other one too. So, uh, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about your passion. I guess I know your main passion is poetry, but maybe you have some others too. And
Yeah,
we can
okay.
talk about how you found your passion, right? Uh,
Sure, sure.
so this
I
is
have a
the
lot to say
point of,
about it.
yeah. So this is basically my premise around like what passion is, because the if you look at the origin of the word passion, it comes from the word to suffer. Uh, so because of that, I felt inspired to write this poem. How to find your passion. Fingers pressing on the mandolin, wanting to play like my brothers, but it hurts so much to press the tough strings. I can't stand it. I cry, not because of the pain, but because it hurts that I can't play like them. Trying to ride a bike, but always falling, scared of being bruised. I never learned to balance and just keep moving forward. Yet, dancing with my spiral stick way past my muscles getting sore, but the adrenaline rush, the waves of endorphins sliding up my neck feels so good, it's worth it. Same thing with painting with 3D fabric paint directly from the bottle. For precision requires my fingers hurting quite a bit sometimes, but the beauty that the fusion of my mind, my vessel, and the paint leaves behind on this flat, fragile, yet maybe eternal, maybe immortal surface is so awe-inspiring. I feel relaxed tears of pride. Same thing with writing. No matter how much uncomfortable it may get sometimes to travel back in time through the wormhole of my mind to the moments of being laughed at, or sounds of gunshots, or looters arguing with my mom as they try to reach the government warehouse next door. My heart beats faster, my body recoils, my mouth still agape with shock, as if I am still there. Yet, the moment my meta manipulation time machine transforms those hormones into ink or pixels of text on the screen, the cortisol shifts into dopamine and then serotonin, a slight smile on my lips, deep exhalation. Yes, yes, this too is worth it. So, yes, this is how to find your passion. Ask yourself, which one or which ones are worth it despite the pain? Oh,
Oh, okay. I have a lot to say about your piece. First of all, I think you explained it very nicely, very precisely. I'd say that hormonal imbalance can be an example when you're doing something and you feel very happy, you feel very changed in it, you
yeah,
feel a different way in your body, you feel difference in your body, and that's how you explained hormonal imbalance with biological
yeah,
hormones and endorphins and all. And
yeah,
that was amazing, like one of the ways to explain how to find your passion. And then when you
mhm.
said uh, in a click, as if I was there, and pixels into
Yeah,
the
one writing together.
paper, and that what into ink? What was that word?
Transforms these hormones into ink or pixels of text on the screen.
Amazing. I loved that line. I loved that line. Wow. This is
Yeah,
how to find your passion.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I showed the opposite examples, right? There were some things that was too painful for me, so I stopped. Like when I play the guitar on the mandolin, it's very like a lot of people here get calluses, even the skin peels off when they play the guitar, right? And that was too painful for me because it wasn't my passion. That pain wasn't worth it. But for those who love playing the guitar or the mandolin, that pain is worth it, right? Whereas with writing or even with dancing, sometimes my muscles get sore when I dance too much, but I love it because the pain is worth it because it's my passion.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay,
Yeah.
So what once happened was I started singing classes, and it
Mm,
was classical singing, and I didn't like it. But I thought if I
mm,
give it time, I might like it soon. I might like it.
mm,
I gave it 6 months of time, and
mm,
people who sing, they wake up early and they do the riyaz and all. And I never did that. I personally never did that. In 6 months of time, I never did that. And I didn't feel like doing it because it was not my passion. I didn't
right.
feel changed in it. I didn't like you said that pain was not worth it. I didn't
Mhm,
think that waking up early at that time for singing, which I don't like, was worth it. But I
mm.
can wake up till 3 a.m. or wake up early 3 a.m. For writing. I can wake up
Exactly. Yeah.
anytime for
Yeah.
writing, literally. In lockdown, I used to literally sleep at 4 a.m. after doing Chris's lives and all. I used to
Exactly. I
literally,
remember. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
that felt like my passion. You just told me what is my passion. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
So
actually,
how
this.
did writing
Sorry.
how did writing become your passion? And do you have any other passions besides writing, or is it just writing?
Uh, I don't know. Like, I love dancing. I love dance,
Mm,
and it's not as same as writing poetry. It comes to me not that much often as poetry
mm,
like nowadays, but it used to be a thing before poetry, I'd say. And I still sometimes feel like, okay, and now today I have to dance, and the whole
mhm,
day I just play songs and I dance.
mhm.
Literally anything, any song you play, and I'll be doing any steps, I'll be doing any stretching steps, anything. So dance used to be one of the things which I still love, and I used to love more than I love now. But
Right. Yeah.
poetry is something very different than dance.
Mhm.
I don't know how to explain that, but yeah, it's very different than dance, and I would not say more peaceful or something like that, but yeah. Um, Before lockdown, I in 2020, yeah, in 2020, I wrote my first poem on 8th March, Women's Day.
Mm,
I used to go in English literally clubs in our school, and there was an exercise called poetry writing. What they used to
mm,
say is they used to give us a topic, and they wanted
mhm,
us to write rhyming poetries. I mean,
mhm.
for some people, poetry is just rhyming. Usually when you're in
Right. Yeah.
seventh, eighth grade, it's first thing they teach us that you have to write rhyming poetry. So we started from that, and I wrote. They gave us a homework to write something, and
Mm,
I chose Women's Day, and that was my
mhm,
first poem, and it was rhyming, and it was very small, and that's how I
mhm,
knew that I can try something in that when I felt like, okay, this was something different. And when the very
mm,
first time, like I said, that I want to be precise with my feelings and with what I actually mean, so I changed a few words in that. I googled, and it was, I don't know, my teachers were a little bit too happy, I guess. My mom was very happy. So I was like, okay, let's try. Let's give this time. Like I said, I
mhm.
gave time to singing, and then I started giving this time. I started writing. I opened my page, I guess, in June end, June 28th,
Mhm.
2020, and that's how it just became something to me. I
Mhm.
started lives,
Yeah.
and I started learning from people that rhyming poetry is not just a thing. You have uh, different types of poetries, which I still am working on. I don't know exactly, but yeah, I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
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 So that's how.
Yeah. Isn't it magical, like how, you know, the randomness of language, right? Just general language is very infinite. There are many infinite ways to express language. There's something magical, at least to me, about how you can bring something so random and so big into this very beautiful, finite structure that can really move people and touch people's hearts, you know.
You know, sometimes readers uh, who are like conservative or orthodox about poetry, they think that it's only about rhyming. So when I used to be in eighth grade,
Exactly.
like 2 years back, literally, I used to be like that. I used to think that it's only rhyming, and what is this? You don't have rhyming words at the end of the every line, so this is not poetry. This is nothing. But then I learned. Then I started actually writing. Then I started feeling it in
Mhm.
real life, and then I felt that this is poetry. Finding out
Exactly.
words which are rhyming is not poetry.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
And sometimes
actually,
there are poetry that rhymes and it doesn't move you, and I'm like, okay, okay, it's technically poetry, but it doesn't do anything for me, you
exactly,
know.
exactly. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it can be an example for the definition of poetry, but not exactly felt poetry, I'd say.
Exactly, yeah. That's why there's a whole genre of poetry called free verse and also stream of consciousness, right?
Exactly,
And there's a lot
exactly.
of famous writers like Allen Ginsberg who wrote every one of his poems as stream of consciousness. You know, they don't rhyme at all. And most of my poems don't rhyme at all, but they have these beautiful images strung together, right? Yeah.
You know, your poetry doesn't
Oh,
need anything else. You write so beautifully, and
mhm,
when you read it, the hand actions you use and the way you
mm,
speak it, it changes everything. Like if I'm reading your poetry written on a piece of paper, it would be very different than the way you speak it and the way you present it to anyone else. So
mhm.
that's how,
Yeah,
that's the difference between the readers and the writers, which nobody can help about.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so let me read this final piece by request. And since you requested, this is the one that took 3 weeks to write.
Oh my
That
god.
started with the mind map. So this process, this is a perfect example of what I mean by process, right? Uh, because it was inspired by something new. So unlike the Khalil Gibran one, which I'd been thinking about for 15 years, this was inspired by a new thing that I'd never read before. I read a short story by Bolu Bawalola, which is a retelling of the 1001 Nights in her short story collection, Love and Color. It's like a feminist retelling, which I think you'll love. And I've only read two stories in that book so far because each story is so deep and each story raises my standards on relationships. And and that's why I wanted to write a poem in response to that. But I knew that because it's so new, I needed to give myself time, that incubation period. So I started with the mind map, then I took a break for a day. Then the next day I made a topic list. Then I took another break for a day and I put the topics in order. And then I took 2 weeks break. And then this week all the words came very quickly within a few minutes because I had taken 2 weeks break, right? But I had taken breaks between each stage of the process too. So this is the poem. It's called Rhythmic Superpositions. Feeling your lips move like that, your eyes making those waves, your hands driving my soft curves into hard muscles, yet still flexible, still free. The smooth interplay of hard and soft is incredible sensations of freedom, like it could bust out of my body, yet still feeling my body more than ever, feeling its aliveness like I never have before, feeling my eyes on your face, my awareness expanding beyond myself, like I want to get to know you, all of you. The tambourine in my chest making faster sounds, feeling my muscles clench and recoil in anticipation of you perhaps saying no. Yet this itself is an aliveness I get to retreat from or enjoy, simultaneously feeling my skin getting warm, my muscles relaxing, enjoying my own lips move into beautiful circles, enjoying its tingles as it moves into a bowl ready to shoot its shot, ready to let the ball release, because yes or no, I still feel more alive than ever, feeling my own impact on you as if it's my own body too that's affected, like a particle becoming one with its own wave, its own effect. Knowing this, what I release to you, I also release inside myself on some level, in some way. I try to move slowly yet surely, my eyes open, even my skin becoming my ears, listening for every twitch of you, reaching, recoiling, or unsure, trying to gauge, letting the cauldron of my magical drum beat its spell, but still allowing this moment to be co-creation with you, so that the whole, our togetherness, becomes greater than the sum of its parts, so that it's not so much about what happens when our bodies intertwine in mutual moaning, but what happens afterwards. How calm is our breaths? How vast do we feel inside ourselves and in the space between? And yet, how much more cozy is this space becoming? How are our hugs becoming so much like castle walls and yet like rose petals at the same time? How is simply being next to you becoming more and more enough? Laying my head beside you, still silence. No need to always be checking for intruders, no intrusion, no intrusive thoughts, because with you, it's just just the very bottom of the ocean, so silent, so still, so safe. That's also the top of a tree, touching the infinite sky, filled with the music of the 10,000 birds chirping in harmony.
Wow, wow. I don't have words for this piece of yours. I mean, it's it's just too elaborative, which is the
Mm-hmm.
best part about this piece. And I
Mm-hmm.
love the imagery, and I love the last part that it's the bottom of the ocean and the top of the tree, which is
Mm-hmm.
I don't have words for this one. It's you left me speechless.
Yes. This is the piece I'm most proud of so far, and I think it's worth the wait, worth the 2 weeks.
Right, right. You know,
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
we feel that some of our pieces have are like masterpieces. I feel like when something I've written
Yeah.
and it's my favorite and I'm proud of it, like you said, I feel it's a masterpiece and I name it as a masterpiece
Mm-hmm.
because I like to name it as a masterpiece. Wow.
Wonderful. Yeah,
I mean, it
yeah,
just gives me the inspiration that, yeah, something is a masterpiece. So, yes.
exactly. Do you have another piece you want to share that's a masterpiece or your favorite piece that you wrote?
Okay, I can read one. Just a
Okay.
second. So I wrote this one, a letter to my weaknesses and my strengths,
Mhm.
and it
I
has a
love
little
it.
bit of Hindi in between. And I just wrote it. I don't know exactly how to read Hindi poetry or to write Hindi poetry, but I don't know. I just felt like writing a few lines in between, and I wrote it a while back. It's called a letter to my weaknesses and my strengths. Dear weaknesses and strengths, I hope strengths find these letters without any weaknesses and weaknesses gain some strength. I wish you both a firefly's fate. Subject for interrupting your muffled cries is the devils of the world. I want you both to take caution to read this letter. It contains my life and death. This devil is one of my favorite society's vows to me. It's called Society's Vows to Me.
Mm.
When a scattering of molecules occurred, some organs took birth, covered with curtains of rain, having conversations with the moon. That was me. The day this happened, some people convinced me to live. That I, a girl who gives embodiment to Durga, Lakshmi, but now I have to be Lakshmi Bai. And being Draupadi haunts me. एक नारी की हत्या तभी हो जाती है जब उसका अपमान होता है मगर सम्मान मिले ही नहीं तो क्या महत्व तो जन्म का क्या महत्व अगर एक औरत का सम्मान अग्नि में चलने से भी नहीं होगा तो उसकी जीवन का सफलता तो दूर की बात है I pity the world who didn't give me much strength. I adore my weaknesses. I may create an idol of my weaknesses and pray. I may consider strengths at every girl's period. And weaknesses are goddesses of my life. Second, he will haunts me. Freedom. For your safety, proceed with caution. My father hands me a dagger sharpened with freedom, and I stab myself right in the middle of my heart. I'm breathing the rhythm. I'm feeling a gateway to heaven, and I feel grateful. Heartbeats race faster than you think can I survive. Because I never heard the instructions paper for the dagger of freedom. First line. Freedom. Terms and conditions apply. You can't die, you have to pay in blood and breath. Devil number 3. You. Yes, weaknesses and strengths. You both have created flaws in me, degraded me to live in extinction. With the labyrinth of secrets, you've made a catalogue of mistakes. I have a room full of questions and I would like answers in person. Thank you. Yours oblivious, Vanika. That was it.
I love it. Yeah. It reminds me of my own poem, Intertwined, that I read to you earlier about how everything's intertwined, right? And I feel like weaknesses and then strengths are two sides of the same coin, depending on the context, right?
Exactly,
The
exactly,
weakness can be a strength, or the strength can be a weakness.
exactly. I feel you, and I guess this was one of my list poems, like you said, like table number 1, table
Right.
number
Yeah.
2, table number 3, and I feel very proud of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Love it.
None of
Yeah.
this is true.
Yeah.
It's all based on. I guess I wrote this for Women's Day, and it just felt very nice after writing it because I used Durga, Lakshmi Bai, and Draupadi and all, and I felt very happy after reading this, after writing this, and all.
Mm-hmm.
And I read it to an open mic also. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like even, being outspoken, right? And say calling out injustice. Depending on how other people view that, they can accuse you of like being an angry person or a hostile person, but you're just speaking the truth, right? So that's what I mean by context.
you know, um, I have heard that most of the poets write from the incidents of their life and
Hmm.
whatever they feel from a particular word or a particular incident, or
Right,
if something reminds them of a particular person or someone they lost and all.
right.
But I feel like I don't write anything related to my own life. Mostly. It's not exactly.
Mm,
Mostly, if I'm writing for someone related to me, or someone, my mother or someone like that, it's, yeah, but it's not mostly. When I write about love, it's just, when I write about feminism and all, it's fictional. It's very fictional, and I don't know, people just get very uh, I'd
mm.
say against the fact that I write fictional because they just feel that no, this can't be fictional. This is very true. You felt this and all.
Right.
I just, it's not. It's not.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you also need, more life experience to write from a personal thing, I feel like, because you're like 15 right now, right? Like, so it's okay for you to write from fictional right now, I think it's
Exactly.
fine.
I get inspired by other people's life, by other people's poetry, by
Yeah,
simple words and whatever is happening around me, and I write about that,
right.
but it's all fictional. It's nothing about me. A few weeks before, I went to an open mic, and after the open mic was done, somebody came up to me and they were like, "Did you fall in love? You're 15." I was like, "No, no, I didn't." I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay, okay." I mean, if I write about love, it doesn't mean that I write about me. So, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, 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 that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes. Hi,
So yeah, I think
Divansh. I'm so sorry. I
kind of,
felt very happy that he came in at this time.
yeah, so I think you wanted it to be limited to 45 minutes, so I think this is a
Yeah,
good
I guess
time.
it's gonna be late
Uh,
and
so yeah,
already exceeded 1 hour, I guess.
Okay. Uh, yeah. So yeah, I will post this up and also use the collab function for this one too, so it shows up on your profile too.
Sure, sure.
Too. Yeah.
And thank you for
And yeah,
having me.
thank you so much.
I have learned so many things for you from you today. You don't even know that. I learned how to know that about writer's block, and giving it time helps. Writing helps and all. You've taught me a lot today. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kundan.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of which, I also, as far as preparation, there's something that's really important is building your skill, right? I watched a documentary about the famous painter, Japanese painter Kuraro and her father Hakusai. And it turns out back in the day, the painters would copy, somebody famous like and be their apprentice and work for them and, paint their paintings, their style, brushstroke by brushstroke for many years before they do their own paintings. And that reminded me of how sales copywriters will like copy